Thank you so much for joining me today. The Lilypad Lake bundle is where it's at. It's really a close bundle to my heart because I live in Minnesota, and in Minnesota we have these wonderful herons everywhere. We have blue herons, white herons, and probably a lot of degrees in between. But I am going to focus on white herons because it is so easy. You just stamp the heron and you run the die cut through your Big Shot machine and boom, you have your heron to put onto your card. And so let me show you the card we're going to make, and it looks like this. And this is one that I created especially for my nephew. He's a great wildlife person, and so I knew he'd really relate to this card, and it was a graduation card for him. And now I'm going to make another one to give to my dad for Father's Day, which I think that's next week. Anyway, we're going to go see him next weekend, so looking forward to sharing with you how to do that. So in addition to the Lilypad Lake bundle, I'm going to be using the Itty Bitty Greetings bundle. This is a really nice companion set for many of our stamp sets because sometimes we don't always have exactly the right greeting that we need in our stamp set when we get it. But if you happen to have this bundle, the Itty Bitty Greetings bundle, you will find a lot of kind of generic sentiments that will fit into small punches, and that works really well. And so we could do love and sympathy or engaged, I miss you, many thanks, there's an Easter one, a Halloween one, a Christmas one, a wedding one, a Mother's Day, a Father's Day, and a baby one, and a happy day. It's just, or just an all occasion hello. I mean, there's so many little things that will just make your card perfect. And so I will be sharing that on my Father's Day card. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I'm just having a little trouble getting this all loaded, but it does appear we have some watchers, so I must be doing something right. So thank you again for joining me, and let's flip this camera down and we'll get started recreating this bundle and recreating this card. And my favorite thing about this card is making the water, and I have some tips for you on how to do that, and it's just gorgeous. So let me flip the camera and we'll get started. As you notice, I have my Stampin' Up! Catalog open. Hooray! The catalog is live, so I can start sharing inside pages. It's been kind of tough to keep that quiet, but many of my customers already received their catalogs, and so they've been enjoying it right along with me. So let me share with you what I do to make my catalog easier to work with before we get started making this card. So the first thing I do is let me move a few things out of the way, is I actually take the catalog to an office supply store. So in my case, because it's fairly local, I just run it over to Office Max. And then I have them put on a clear kind of acetate cover on the top and on the back, and then I have it spiral bound. And I usually try to ask them to match a spiral with the catalog. And so in this particular case, they had kind of a navy spiral, and so I matched that to the logo here on the catalog. And then the very next thing I do, once I have it all spiral bound, is I take these little Post-its, and they're super sturdy, and I can use them from year to year. And then I use the Stampin' Up! Journaling pens to write on them because the journaling pens will dry almost instantly. And so as you can see, then I label all the way through so that if I'm looking for something, I kind of have a vague idea of where it might be in the catalog. So the first thing I labeled was something that honestly might have been in our prior catalogs, but I just never noticed. And so one thing that I love about this new catalog is they have a section in here called You Can Make It. And so if you look in here on page 2, you will find cards that can be made with an entire You Can Make It kit. So these are like little mini kits within the catalog, and they are perfect for people who are brand new to stamping and don't actually have a lot of supplies. For example, let's just take a look at this little piggy. This little piggy cards, it's on page 33, and they tell you that the bundle to make these cards is $53. So you can see all of these price points are right around $50 with the exception of the Memories and More kit, which is right at $31. So we'll turn to page 33, and there it is. It's right up here. It says you can make it, and it gives you everything you need to recreate these cards. So for $53, you would get the Little Piggy stamp set. You would get the Whisper White Memories and More cards and envelopes. You'd get the Memento pad and the Stampin' blends in Granny Apple Green and Petal Pink. Just the light blend here and the dark blend here. And of course, just as a side note, the new colors for the Stampin' blends are not going to be available until mid-June. So I'm pretty sure this little make it kit maybe would not be available either until mid-June. So that's just a side note. But then you also get the baker's twine that goes with it. And when you have everything in this little kit, you can recreate these cards exactly. So that's truly, truly fun. Hello everyone joining me. It's great to see you here. Thanks for piping in and saying hello. I truly appreciate it. So let's get back to the other thing that I do with these catalogs, as I was mentioning, is I go through and use these Post-it notes and again just transfer them from year to year into my spiral. And so here's the birthday section, babies and kids, holiday, thanks, love, support, the artsy section. And I just say artsy because, hello, I don't want to say artistic expressions. It's too much to write. So you kind of get the idea. And then, of course, back here we have our ribbon and trim, our coloring tools, our Stampin' accessories, our embellishments. Oh, and speaking of embellishments and paper and ribbon, I've already placed the initial order. And I know many of you are very excited about this. I've already placed the initial order for my Stamping to Share Perfect product shares. So they will be arriving next week, and then I'll take about a week to get them all sorted, cut, organized. And I have a couple of helpers helping me, so it's going to probably go a little faster than maybe even I had anticipated. And then I'll get those in the mail to you as quick as I can along with your little gifts. And so be sure to go to my blog at www.stampingtoshare.com if you're interested in getting product shares. I only offer them through June 30th. And so you'll get a nice selection of embellishments, and you will also get a really nice selection of ribbon, basically everything that's new in the catalog. And then, of course, the wonderful paper shares. These are available to order individually, or you can do a get it all bundle. So let's move on to what we're using to create this card. So what we are using is the Lilypad Lake bundle and the Itty Bitty Greetings, because I'm going to turn this into a Father's Day card. And so this is the card, and it's so pretty. And then when you open it up, you can have plenty of room to write, or if you're just making these in advance, you can customize the inside greeting down the road to however you want it to be. As I mentioned, I initially made this one as a graduation card, and then I put a graduation greeting on the inside. It actually had been retired, but I made it special for my nephew. And now we're going to make the Father's Day card. So as you can see, the bundle is wonderful. There's a lot of sentiments in here, and there is a lot you can do with all of these Thinlits. And then, of course, a great companion set to many, many of your stamp sets will be the Itty Bitty Greetings, so that you can customize your cards for whatever occasion you might need them for. So the first thing that we're going to need to recreate this card is our card base, and we are using Night of Navy. This is cut at 5.5 by 8.5, and then I've scored it at 4 1/4. And I'm just going to take my bone folder and give that score line a good press so that it lies flat for us. And then we're going to put our inside panel on, which, as you know, is just going to be a 1/4 inch smaller. And that is 4 by 5 1/4. And I already stamped and colored the bottom piece right here to decorate the inside. And don't worry, I'll be sharing with you exactly how I colored that, because we have these same little lily pads on the front of the card. So you'll get to see me do that. So you'll just carry that technique into the inside panel of your card. So that is done. We can just set this aside because now we're going to get into the fun stuff here, which is stamping our water. This is so much fun. So we have a 3 3/4 inch by 5 inch card base here, or I shouldn't say card base. It's a panel of Whisper White that's going to go onto our card base. And we are going to start by getting our water ready. So I have that already on a block. And then I have my Pool Party, and I have my Bermuda Bay, and then this is Night of Navy. And these are the 3 colors that I used to create this card. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're just going to ink up the Pool Party first. And what you want to do is kind of think about where the middle of your card is. So the very first thing that you're going to stamp is a stripe just below the middle. And that's going to be full strength in Pool Party. So just looking at this, I mean, you don't have to be exact, but just, you know, I think my middle of my card is about right here. So to remember where that is, this is a great little tip for those of you that use grid paper. Just put the middle of the card in the middle of your grid paper, and you are set to go, and you don't have to, you know, kind of remeasure that. So now I've got that in the middle of my grid paper, and I can tell because I have the thicker stripes on this side. So again, I inked it up in Pool Party, and I'm going to stamp my very first lines right below the center line of my card. So I'm going to put that on, and again, don't take it off too quickly. Let the ink settle into the card, and then pull it away, and then you're going to do your second stamp just above that, but overlapping. So you don't re-ink. You're just going to use a second generation to get the top part of your water. So now you have your Pool Party on, and the reason that we start with the lightest color is that way we don't have to really, you know, clean our stamp in between colors. So we'll take the next darkest color, which is the Bermuda Bay, and you're going to ink that up, and you're going to bring it down here and stamp it. You're going to leave a space of about maybe an inch or so at the bottom. So stamp your Bermuda Bay full strength, lift it up, and then bring it down again so that it's crossing over the top of the Pool Party. Sorry about that. All right, so there, now you have a little bit of variegation started, and it looks so pretty. The next thing we're going to do is bring in the Night of Navy, which is your darkest color. So after you use this, you would want to go ahead and, you know, clean your stamp. So then we're going to stamp that full strength right here at the bottom where that, you know, kind of 1 inch piece was. And then the second generation is going to go right over the top of that. Now I left a little bit too wide of a mark down here, and I don't want this looking, you know, too white down there. So I'm just going to re-ink in full strength and just do one more little stamp here at the bottom. I'll show you what I mean. So I don't have a white gap. So there you go. There we have our beautiful water, and it's beautifully variegated and ready for a card. But we're going to set that aside for just a second because I want to do the stamping of our heron. So what you're going to need for that is just a scrap of Whisper White, and we're going to use Stays On ink because we are going to use a blender pen to do the coloring on this. Stays On is new to this catalog. I'm super excited that it's back. We used to have it. They took it away, and now it's back. Super, super excited to have it back because you can stamp what Stays on vellum, on glossy, on our regular cardstock, our Whisper White, our Very Vanilla, everywhere, and it dries permanently. And it's a strong dry, so you can color on it almost immediately. Now, the thing that you have to remember is you absolutely cannot use your Stampin' Blends with StazOn. So we have a different ink pad for Stampin' Blends, which is our Tuxedo Black Memento ink. But this is what we're using today because we're going to be using blender pens, and it's our Jet Black StazOn. So one little tip for you, I happened to come across this because I still had it from the past, is when you open it up, there is a little cover, because it's really, really important that while you're using your StazOn, you don't leave the cover off for too long a period of time. And this little plastic piece will keep your StazOn juicier longer so that you can get your best images. But one thing that's a little annoying is every time you take the cover off, then you've got this kind of loose plastic thing that you're always dealing with. So this is what I do to remedy that. I'm just going to share it with you. I just take a couple of dimensionals, put it right here on the cover, and then we'll take the little peelies off. And then we're going to put our cover back on top like this. Give it a nice press so it grabs onto those dimensionals. Then every time you open it, ta-da! Your cover will stay intact, so you don't have that little plastic thing flipping around all over. So that's what I do. Just a little tip for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and stamp this heron. Just ink him up, and we're just stamping him on a piece of Whisper White scrap. Then we're going to take another piece of Whisper White scrap, and I'm sure many of you have lots of strips of Whisper White for when you're cutting down your Whisper White. Just take one of those skinny strips, and I'm using World's Best Father, but you could do anything that you wanted. Stamp that, and there we go. And these two things are going to be cut out now with the Big Shot machine. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and you'll be glad to know I pre-cut. So let me get my platform in here. I use my Big Shot machine, and then I use the magnetic platform. I have a cut plate and then a plate I don't necessarily cut on, but sometimes my customers do. And then here it is. So we have the heron here, and we have World's Best Father here. So let me move this out of the way, and we are going to continue on with the card here. So now we need to stamp our sun. So I'm going to grab the StazOn again, and I'll ink up the sun. This is very important. Don't press too hard into your ink pad, because you don't want ink on the inside of the sun, because if that happens, then you get kind of this weird black spot in your sun if you press too hard. And so you're just going to stamp the sun in the upper left corner, just like that. And then we're going to stamp a couple of Lilypads, because this stamp set is called Lilypad Lake. And so you want to have your Lilypads here. So I'll stamp the first one right here, sort of half on, half off. And we'll stamp the second one over here. Also, just a little bit of it, and you know, kind of getting cut off there. And now we will do our coloring. And so to do that, we have a couple more ink pads that we're going to be using. We have Daffodil Delight for the sun, and I've already kind of squished it here. And then we have Old Olive for our lily pads. Again, I squished it, so I have the ink on the base here. So now we'll take our blender pen, and I'm going to just do the sun first, I think. So I've got it inked up here, or I've got the ink here, and we're going to just color in the sun. So now what I'm doing is I'm just taking off the excess color so that the next time I use this end of the blender pen, it's ready to go for my next color. Now I'm going to take this end of the blender pen, ink it up with our Old Olive ink, and then we're going to color in these lily pads. And when you do that, you sort of can see a little bit of the lake through the pads, but you can add a second layer of color and then that is almost not even noticeable. So we're going to continue to add that. And then a little bit here. And we're going to leave the flowers striped. I sort of like that look, you know, with the flowers sort of translucent with the stripes running through them. Most of the flowers that I see on lakes, on lily pads where you know, here in Minnesota, are typically white. But there are some yellow ones, but I think on the lakes that I am on, they are all white. So I'm leaving mine white. But I think they have pink ones and they also have yellow ones. If you ever have a question about how to color a flower, one thing that I do is I'll just go to Google and I'll type in the name of the flower. For example, I would type in lily pads and then I would type in images and then hit the Google search button and you'll get all kinds of pictures of the lily pads and the different colors that they might be. So we have that colored. Now we also need to just grab this little strip of green. So I have a 1/2 inch strip here of Old Olive because we're going to layer the World's Best Father onto this strip of Old Olive. So I'm just going to take my snail, put this right here on the back, and we're going to line that up so this little peak is sticking out of the end. And that looks good. And now we're going to grab an Old Olive panel that is 4 by 5 1/4 inches. And we are going to take our snail and we're going to layer this Whisper White panel onto this Old Olive panel. So let me do that for you. And then for this, we're going to put this down here, but I think I'll wait until, well, I think I'm just going to put this here loosely until I have my stork in place. So with my stork, I'm going to set him about right here. So let me just add a little bit of snail to him. And I'm going to keep the legs kind of loose because we're going to be actually snipping his feet off. And I'll show you how that's going to work in a second here. So we can actually have his feet sort of down here wherever because they're going to get snipped because we want him to look like he's actually walking in the water. So this looks like a good place to put him. Now I can get this out of the way because I know where that's going to go. But what you're going to do next, and I'll bring this up close to the camera so you can actually see, you want to find a water line and you're going to snip right above that water line. So there's one leg. And then the other leg, we're going to go just a tad shorter. So we're going to snip that one right there. And now it looks like he doesn't, just like magic, boom, he looks like he's walking through the water. Such a cool thing. Now I'm going to use this glue, go all the way around, and there we go. Another question I get very commonly is why do I never use glue on Whisper White? And I will say it's not never, because sometimes I will if I'm using very teeny tiny amounts. But the reason is because sometimes Whisper White, not right away, but maybe down the road a few months, you'll see glue lines. And I don't like that. But if you're using it on designer series paper or you're using it on our regular cardstock, colored cardstock, it doesn't do that. Just with the Whisper White, and that's why I use snail with Whisper White. So there is the card. Now we're going to do the World's Best Father. So I'm going to line this up here, and I think I'm going to just snip it right now. I'm just going to snip it about right here, and then we're going to put that on with dimensionals. So I have, again, a couple of dimensionals here, and you could use our mini dimensionals, but this 1/2 inch strip is big enough that it will fit a couple of our regular size dimensionals. But those mini dimensionals do come in handy. So now we're just going to set this in so that it is flush with this white panel edge. And we'll set that in just like that. And there we have it. Our card is complete. World's Best Father card. So then I can give this to my dad this weekend. Real excited to see him. He's been having some health problems, so I've been spending more time with him recently. So he truly loves nature, and he really is a great dad. Have a great day, everyone. I truly appreciate you, and take care. Bye-bye.